So we have come to the final subtopic for chapter 4, that is storytelling in design process. So basically we learn what is the process of creating or writing a storytelling. So first, how to tell a story. So first you need to decide on the purpose of your engagement, okay, what you want to achieve and what it is important for the audience to know. Then you can frame your narrative around this. Okay, first you need to choose your anecdotes. Okay, so what is anecdotes? So it is the interesting story about a real incident or person. Okay, so you have to choose your anecdotes wisely. Okay, and then do not use storytelling to explain simple stuff, but rather use it to simplify the complicated bits of your story. And then when you construct a narrative or telling an anecdote, keep your story simple so that it flows neatly. Okay, so this is in general, how do you tell a story. First, when you want to write a book, for example, you have to find what is the main points, okay, that you want to write about. Okay, so that is what we call as anecdotes. Okay, so for example, in your project, probably you are doing a report on sales performance of a company, so that you want to explain, okay, the incident or the performance of the company. So by looking into the sales performance and all other information related to the business performance. Then you're going to learn how to write, okay, the story, okay, by identifying the important information that we need to supply in the data storytelling. So the structure of storytelling, so it has to have a beginning, okay, a middle, and an end. So if you look into this representation here, okay, the story arc, okay, so we start with the setup of the story, okay, and then you will reach to the climax, but along the way, so you will try to introduce what is the incidents, okay, what are the action taken, okay, and when you reach the climax, so you will report, for example, the success or failure, okay, and then what are the action taken to support the failure, and then the resolution. So that is basically the structure of a story. So it has to have a beginning, it has to have the middle, and then it has to have the end. Okay, so in the beginning you have to set up the story context. So you have to introduce the characters, okay, and the status quo. Okay, so status quo is the existing state of affairs, okay, of the story. So this is the opening that pulls your audience into the story. Then you introduce the catalyst, meaning that the events or person that cause changes to the story, or we call it as conflict. Okay, because without conflict you will have no story. So conflict can be in many forms. For example, human versus human, about human versus society, human versus nature, human versus himself or herself, or any context. Okay, within I mean any conflict within the context of your story. And then in the middle part or middle structure of the storytelling is you create a turning point which leads to a resolution of the conflict. Okay, so the conflict will rises until it reaches a crisis or turning point in the middle. Okay, and at the end, so you have to end the climax, and you propose the, or you narrate, okay, the resolution, and you also make a conclusion. So the conclusion is to conclude all conflicts, that whether it has been resolved, and all the loose ends, okay, that are tied up. So these are the three structure within a storytelling: beginning, middle, and end. Okay, on this slide, it discusses about the steps to link stories in data storytelling. So there are 5 steps that is suggested in order to link your stories. The first one is you have to tell the reader what kind of information that you want to obtain. So this is to capture attention and to generate interest for the reader. And then it continue with you provide, okay, the context for the data. Okay, so you have to highlight the significance and the meaning of the data that they are looking at. And then the third one, okay, okay, sorry for the mistake here, the number of the steps. Okay, so in the third one, so you have to guide the reader through a logical hierarchy, okay, by ordering the content of your data in a logical and concise way, whichever is essential. Then the fourth one is to highlight the notable story or the findings or the insights, okay, from your data. So it is important to directly call out key takeaways. And the last one is to provide a sound conclusion. Okay, so sound conclusion is very important, because once you have presented your story, you may want to lead your viewer to a desired conclusion without spelling it out for them. So the conclusion shows your ability to provide a summative summary from your finding or your observation of the data that you are presenting. Okay, so a conclusion is very important. Okay, it's a big credit, okay, throughout, okay, the whole data storytelling. And then you also have to understand the 5 types of data relationships. Okay, so these are the 5 common data relationships. So good stories are normally hidden in data relationship. Okay, so what do we mean by data relationship? Meaning that you observe your data field. Okay, your data field in your data set. So how can you see the relationship? Because in order for you to invoke or to come up with analysis, you have to observe your data field and come up with your some objective or investigation that you want to do. Okay, so you have to understand their relationship. That is why data dictionary is very important. Without data dictionary, you wouldn't understand what does each particular data field means. Okay, so data dictionary is a dictionary about data. So after understanding, once you understand, okay, the meaning for each data field, then you can see, you can try to identify or to investigate, okay, the relationship amongst the data. So good stories are normally hidden in data relationship. So when you start to play with your data, so you begin to see how each data point relates to one another. So you have to understand what data type of relationships that that helps you to find your story faster. Okay, for example, the relationship is the first one is we call it as correlation. Okay, so correlation, and then second is trends, third is distribution, fourth is outliers, and 5 is comparison and ranking. So in correlation, you have data with 2 or more variables that may demonstrate a positive or negative correlation to each other. So you will identify, okay, the variables or the data field and see, okay, the input, I mean the data, and see if there is connection or if there is correlation between the 2 data field. So if you can find some correlation between 2 or more variables, then the right suitable chart to use or to plot is scatter plot. Okay, and then the second one is a trends relationship. So you will look for noticeable trends, whether it is increasing or decreasing in the data. So you can use a bar chart or line chart. And for distribution kind of relationship, so it shows distribution, okay, of data often around a central value. So you will see like this kind of representation, the bell shape. Okay, so you will see a distribution, and then it is okay, the right chart to use is to use histogram. Okay. So this is in statistics. So we have the bell shape. So we have the middle value here. So the middle value here is shows some distribution on the left and the right side. Okay. So the suitable chart type to use is histogram. And then we have outliers. So this is regarding to data that acts unusually or outside the norm. So where the relationship is very quite fuzzy. Okay, so we can use scatter plot. Okay, if the points on the plot lie away from the trending areas, or we can use also bar chart, or we can also use histogram. Okay, bar chart for unusually high or low values. We can use histogram to tails of the tails of the histogram show if there are many outliers in the data. And then for the last one is comparison and ranking. So we can use simple comparison of quantitative values among subcategories of data. Okay, when we do comparison, and the suitable chart to use is bar chart. And this last slide is to explain to you the guidelines or the tips on how to write reporting data storytelling. Okay, normally if you are given a visualization like this, for example, in this storytelling is about divorce rates in Finland and Sweden. Okay, you can see that the x-axis represent the years, okay, and then the y-axis represent the divorce rate. Okay, the percentage of divorce rate, and then it is represented by two data series, Finland and Sweden, from the year 2011 to the year 2015. So in this kind of reporting data storytelling, so remember that you have to have the beginning, okay, the beginning, okay, the starting, the introduction, and then the end is the conclusion, and then in the middle, okay, the middle is the climax, okay, of the reporting, okay, storytelling. So in the beginning, you have to do the introduction. It is about the general information regarding the chart. Okay, it's about how do you set the story context. Okay, you refer back to the slides on structure of storytelling. Okay, go back to the slide of storytelling structure. Okay, so the beginning, okay, you have to set up the story context, the characters, okay, the conflict, and then in the middle is the turning point, the resolution, and the end is the conclusion. Okay. So in this example, okay, the introduction is we have to, of course, because it's about divorce. So we have to probably define what is divorce. Okay, and then why divorce is important, why we must monitor divorce. Okay, what's the situation in Finland and Sweden, because this is about divorce rate in Finland and Sweden. So you set up the story context, the characters who are involved. So it involves two countries here, Finland and Sweden. Okay, and then what is the existing state of affairs? So meaning that we want to know because the percentage is quite high in both countries. So this is something that is common, yeah, common cases in both countries. So we have to set up, okay, the conflicts. Yeah? What is the conflicts? Okay, so we are explaining about divorce. Okay, why it happens. Okay, why we must monitor. So why it is important. So these points. So you have to think wisely. Try to relate. Okay, you have to think. Try to think out of the box sometimes. Okay. So how can we explain, okay, how can we introduce divorce to the reader? So as we know, the context of the storytelling, okay, is about divorce in Sweden and Finland. So we are discussing the divorce occurrence, divorce rates in these two countries. So that is the context of our storytelling. And who are the audience? So in this case, the audience could be anyone from young children to adults. Okay, so the context of the story is not too critical. Something about within the context of issues of people, about human being. Okay, because this happens everywhere in all countries. I mean, anywhere, any part of the world, yes, divorce happens. So the audience could be anyone from the public. Okay, there is no like specific target of audience. So anyone might be interested, okay, with this story about divorce rate in Finland and Sweden. So in the two paragraphs in between, this is considered first paragraph, and then for you can have two paragraphs for the middle part. Okay, so the second paragraph you describe about what are the patterns found. Okay, so you see the pattern, you see the trend. So check the trends. Okay, so first you check on Sweden, the red color. Okay, what are the pattern variables? So it increases from the year 2011 until 2013, and then it decreases until 2015. So you explain the pattern. So this is the pattern for Sweden. Okay, and then the next variable is divorce in Finland. So Finland started higher and it reduced, and then it increases, keep increasing. So it has two different patterns found here. Okay, so describe the patterns of divorce in Finland, and then you compare, okay, the pattern between the two variable 1 and variable 2. What can you see, or what did you observe about the pattern? So explain there, okay, in terms of pattern. And then the third paragraph is you have a paragraph to describe the values that you can see on the chart. Okay, so in this values description, you support your figures, you support with figures and evidence. Okay, so for variable 1, divorce in Sweden, okay, you mention, okay, try to find what is the highest value and what is the lowest value for divorce rate in Sweden. And then for variable 2 also, you describe what is the highest percentage rate in Finland and the lowest percentage rate in Finland. And then you can compare, okay, you may compare the distinct, the clear or appealing values between variable 1 and variable 2, meaning that between these two countries. Okay, you make comparison, and you may add justifications or arguments to support the description. So even though this is what we call as implicit, okay, implicit information. Okay, so we might want to have that other elements beside the information that we saw, okay, in the chart. So you might want to do a little bit of research. That's just to check, okay, a divorce rate, okay, find article or whatever, divorce rate in Finland and Sweden between the year 2011 to 2015. Probably, let's say, okay, let's say COVID-19 happened, okay, in the year 2012. So that could be one of the reason why, okay, divorce rate is high, because people have to be in home. Okay, they are locked down, they cannot go anywhere. So people who are at not in good terms in their marriage, okay, so they cannot live together. So that's why maybe they have decided, okay, let's end the marriage probably. So there could be some reason, okay, why it leads to higher rate of divorce. Okay, so maybe if there is any intervention, maybe if there is any some incident, okay, happen, okay, or maybe some anything that you can relate, okay, you have to make some little bit of judgment, okay, just make some little bit of research, okay, to justify the situation why that happens, okay. And lastly, it comes to conclusion, okay, but before that you could relate with the age of the marriage probably, okay, so age of the marriage and so on, okay. And then the conclusion is to create a general statement to conclude. For example, okay, started with within 5 years, okay, from 2011 to 2015, okay, the divorce rate is seen to be high in which country, in what year, in which country, okay. And then so the general statement has to be supported with summative analysis. For example, you add figures to get the percentage, okay. So it has to be it has to be supported by figures, okay, in the conclusion, and then support with extra information or justification. Okay, so probably there are family clinics or counseling clinics, counselor in Sweden and Finland are working hard to try to save marriage. Okay, so that those are one of the corrective actions taken or options that can be opted by people in Sweden and Finland about divorce rate. So you can just do some little brief research on how the divorce rate is being minimized in those countries. So there must be some government intervention or whatsoever, any intervention, okay, in that country. So you can support that with your conclusion. So if you remember, when you do this type of writing in your during high schools, okay, you learn about explicit information and implicit information. So explicit is what you can see on the chart, okay, what you can see here, okay, what is written, okay, whereas implicit maklumat tersirat, okay, so you have to do some research, a little bit of research to get some information, okay, how to relate that, okay, with the data here, okay. Why is the rate of dengue is very high in Selangor, okay. So you just have the figure, the statistic of dengue in Selangor, but try to get the information from the alam sekitar, Jabatan Alam Sekitar. Probably there is so many pollution, okay, in Selangor or whatsoever in terms of the hygiene of the state of Selangor. Okay, people maybe just throw garbage everywhere, so it leads to the high increase of Aedes mosquito in Selangor and whatsoever. So that is what I meant by implicit, okay, information. Try to conclude, try to relate, okay, with other information that might not be available on the chart, but it is possible to relate that information, okay, as an argument, okay, or to justify, okay, the evidence that is shown on the chart here. So and for the marking criteria, so we are actually more concerned about how you write, okay, how do you think, how you argue, how do you justify your answer, okay. But if you, let's say, maybe the figure is not really clear, so you maybe you didn't plot, okay, or justify or pick up, okay, the right or accurate figure analysis, that is fine. But then we want to see how the way how you write, okay, the pattern of your storytelling by looking into these four paragraph, okay, these four elements: the introduction, the patterns found, the values description, and also the conclusion. Okay, so I hope it helps you in producing your data storytelling, especially for your project.